the people that are going to be with you on your journey to where you want to go are going to understand when you tell them no. You can't say yes to everything and also say yes to your dream.
It takes what it takes. And that's the end of, that's the end of the story.
Welcome to the Fuel Hunt Show.
Let's talk about the third S in the cycle. And this one is a hard pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that is sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So when you're looking at this soup, if you want to call it a soup instead of a cycle, when you're looking at this soup of the things required to turn your side hustle into your main gig, sacrifice is one of them, man.
Yeah.
Ain't no way around it.
No matter what stage of the cycle you're in or the soup you're in.
Yep.
I mean, to this day, it's funny when you mentioned sacrifice in this framework going into it.
Yeah.
I had a thought and I was like, because you said, oh, you might have to stop watching sports, you might have to stop doing this, stop doing that. And realistically, I thought about how it applies to my own life, but it's not even sacrifice anymore. It's just my life, and I built this life, and I love it so much that it doesn't even feel like I'm sacrificing. You know what I mean? So,
man, you were very intelligent, and you're fast forwarding a little bit.
Okay.
That's
I
definitely
have a bad habit of doing that.
No, that's good. It's a good habit. We're in sync, and it's setting expectations of where we're about to go for everybody watching and listening. Would you agree? So let's pick that apart a little bit. Would you agree though that in the beginning it does not feel that way?
No, yeah. In the beginning it does. It's definitely not that way. That's a good point.
Yeah. We are such strong reframers.
Yeah.
Like somebody could literally walk in and just like take the dump like right here in front of us live and walk away, and you and I would be like, well, we should learn. We should have locked the door. You know what I mean? Like there would be no, you know what I'm saying?
Well, no, not to leave the door open next time.
Right, exactly. So the reframing is something that you gain with experience along the way. If for everybody watching and listening, if you're really not great at reframing yet, you gain that with experience. But you definitely reframe on the journey. You learn how to reframe sacrifice into investment.
Yeah.
You learn how to do that. And sometimes even when I make content, I'm like, for like, say my personal page or whatever, I put a reel out there and I talk about sacrifice. Like I really want to say investment, but we need to tell the few, like in the beginning, it's sacrifice because it's painful and it feels that way.
Yeah, I feel like I did even reframe, and I don't know if we're in the story section.
We're in this. Let's hit them.
Is that okay? Do we deviate from the framework, or were you planning on doing that at the end?
Let's tell some stories of sacrifice from the beginning. Let's start with a easy example. One that's I say is an easy example, but for you, it wasn't so easy. Like you sacrificed a complete floor of your home.
Yeah, that's
your entire basement.
That's what I was.
All 10,500 square feet of your basement. all 1,000 feet.
1,000 square foot house at the time.
You sacrificed your entire basement where you could have been down there at Parker wrestling. You could have been doing.
That's what I wanted to
be
get into.
Overrun with inventory.
But you got me thinking now too, because in the beginning, some might say that was sacrifice, right? Like sacrificing a floor in my house, like. To me, that wasn't even crazy. I was so grateful for each box that had to get put in there meant our business was doing better. Mm-hmm. So for every square foot it took up, I was even happier. Yeah. So it's like when you're building something you love, you still reframe it and shift your perspective that the sacrifice all seems worth it, even when it comes longer than you expected. Yeah. So when we started, thinking back to it now, it was definitely kind of rough, but it started with one rack, turned into two racks, turned into basically a full warehouse built out in my basement at one point. But there wasn't
not a operationally, well, the operation was sound, but how can I word this? Not a
we wouldn't
highly efficient.
OSHA wouldn't have approved
yeah,
us.
it wasn't OSHA for sure. Not a highly efficient and safe build out.
And the walls or the boxes were packed to the ceilings. I went to my laundry room, my mud room. Like if you came over and went down there,
couldn't move.
You couldn't move. You have to. It'd be a maze.
Yeah.
So
you can't tell me that there weren't like. This is the thing. Like we need to meet the few where they are, right?
Yeah.
We are at this point in our journey so good. We're like expert reframers, man. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the few, we could do a whole show on reframing and maybe we will. Like I'm sure, but I want them to really understand that even though you're able to reframe that situation so well, dude, there's still a part of you. When you walk in your basement, you're like, what the F, man? Like this is crazy.
Yeah. When it
stressing
did get,
you
when
out.
It, when
you
it
know?
did get out, it felt like it was time. I remember I was pushing it a little bit because it was there. I had no work like separation. I couldn't get away from like when you leave the office. I mean, obviously we still work 24/7.
Yeah.
But you can at least.
Oh, there's no boundary.
No
There's no
boundary.
boundary.
Everything. It was like I couldn't just sit for a minute and not be at work.
Yeah. Yeah. You know.
So what I want to get into the part that now seems crazy, but at the time wasn't, because I was just in the flow state. But one, we had employees, car pre-mayor coming in literally all day, every day, just like in and out the back door. They basically had keys to my back door. So no personal space either. But I like on days when an employee couldn't be there to pack the orders, or realistically they were on a certain schedule, we'd be eating dinner as a family, and the UPS guy would come and we'd stop eating dinner and we all go take it. And it was like, that was an everyday occurrence because they would be there to pack the orders during the day, and then they would leave them there for us to take out at night. So we'd have to stop dinner, take them out, like, and then days when they couldn't come, the whole family would be down there packing all the orders for the day. Like it was, again, I'm even grateful for it now because I taught Parker valuable lessons at that time. And he saw what it took to actually build something or do something great. So, but looking back on it now, it definitely was a little crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're touching on even more sacrifice of your time with your family. You know what I mean? Sacrificing of boundaries, sacrificing of peace to a certain degree. Like,
what was special though is I think Parker is
there you go, reframing again.
I think Parker is the kid he is today. Like anyone that meets him just knows there's something special about him, because that was just life for us.
He was around the work.
Yeah, it was. It was such and Amanda was starting her business at the time, the gym. So like he grew up just in the middle of the startup phases. It was like, it could have been great for him, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah. You're hitting on all the different sacrifices. The point that I'm trying to hammer home to the few is a key component of this process is sacrifice. And you must reframe those sacrifices as investments, as investments in your ultimate end goal, right? That social contribution, that personal goal, that professional or financial goal. Like you have to reframe those sacrifices because the journey is laden with them.
Yep.
So if you, again, aren't sacrificing something, you ain't going to turn it. You're not going to turn the corner.
Yep.
You know, from side hustle entrepreneur to full-time entrepreneur. You're just not going to do it. Yep. You know?
What's the next S in I'm jumping ahead, but I have something in mind.
Yeah, I want to talk about standing out. I want to talk about skills, and then potentially I want to talk about sophistication. But
all right, so this kind of goes with sacrifice, but you let me know if this applies. My friend, Professor Mike at Gracie Baja, the fellow entrepreneur and great thinker.
Yeah, I met him. Did I meet him?
Yeah, Professor Mike. No, that was Professor John.
Oh, that's Professor John.
Professor Mike is he owns a couple GBs, but he said starting a business is great, and everyone wants to start a business, but then you create the logo, you create the business, and then you got to cross the Sahara to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So that comes down to the sacrifice. But when he said, I thought that was such a great way of saying of depicting entrepreneurship. Like
Yep.
that is the truth.
Yeah.
Like you're literally for the beginning phases crossing a desert.
Yes.
And that's where the sacrifice comes in, because
Yep.
it takes a lot more of you at that point to
Yep.
build something than it does to keep something alive.
There's more demanded of you. There's way more demanded of you. Dude, I couldn't even count all the sacrifices. I'm sure you couldn't. Like if we sat back and said, okay, what have we sacrificed to get to this point? I mean, we've sacrificed simple things like watching sports, following sports. Like we both love sports. We both love hockey. You know what I mean? Like I can't tell you the last time I watched a hockey game. I can't tell you the last time I've been to one either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Simple stuff like that, all the way to, honestly, man, like sacrificing relationships.
Yeah.
You know, people that couldn't believe, couldn't see it as possible, and also couldn't keep their mouth shut about it. You know,
Yeah,
sacrificing relationships, sacrificing financially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're definitely, there's no getting around it. I don't know any entrepreneur that I've talked to that made that jump from side hustle to the main gig that didn't take a pay cut.
Yep.
I think that's just like, it's very, I would say.
A pay cut or sporadic periods of no pay.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about sacrificing of boundaries. You know, we sacrifice peace sometimes, you know, for chaos.
Yeah. And realistically, you said sacrificing relationships, and people just don't, the people that are going to be with you on your journey to where you want to go are going to understand when you tell them no.
Yeah.
Right. It's those, you're going to, realistically, I've heard other, even entrepreneurs, athletes, like you're going to miss out on birthday parties and weddings and like, sorry, I can't come to this because the work is more important than attending that event. And that sounds crazy or cold-hearted, but there are, you can't say yes to everything and also say yes to your dream.
It takes what it takes, and that's the end. That's the end of the story. You know, I don't look at it as sometimes I do. Like the work's more important. The work's more important than me watching the Flyers.
Yeah.
The work's more important than me going to the bar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in the early days and hanging out with the boys. Like sometimes it was that, but really what it always came back to for me was the commitment was more important. We looked at each other. Actually, I think we're on the phone when we said it the first time. And we said, we're going to do this or we're going to die.
Yeah.
And that commitment.
Die on the sword is what you
Yes,
said.
die on the sword,
Not
yes.
die.
Yeah. So
What is it? They call it on the internet, unalive. Did you ever hear that?
no.
I think they say so it like doesn't trigger people. Because
Oh,
die is a
jeez,
trigger
you're
word.
kidding me.
Yeah. I saw it the other day, but it said this person unalive, this person. I don't know if it was a soft thing or just algorithm or the AI or the bots would have saw kill and like turned it off. Or something.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Unalive. That's your word for the day.
Oh, man. Don't get me started. I don't know if I want to go down that whole thing, that whole rabbit hole right now. For me, it was the commitment. Like that commitment we made, it keeping that commitment to myself, keeping that commitment to you, keeping that commitment to our community. So we made it to them too.
Yeah.
You know, we made it to each other first, and then we made it to them.
Yep.
That was more important,
I agree.
you know, than some other things. And not everybody's going to understand that. You are going to sacrifice being understood. That's a big one. You have to be prepared to be misunderstood on this journey. Everybody, every crab is going to try to pull you back in the bucket because they don't understand and they don't believe. Going all the way back to the first S, the story. They don't believe they could do it, and they're going to project that on you.
As you say that too, I think I'm relating this to other walks of, like, obviously athletes are entrepreneurs as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they are chasing a dream and building their name. Mm-hmm. But realistically, think that all the kids whose dreams are shattered at age 6 when they tell their mom and dad they want to be a professional athlete, and they say, "Oh, that's crazy. That's reserved for these people." And
I would never.
Parker never come to me and said he wants to be anything yet. He says he wants to be an entrepreneur, but I think that's just because he grew up. He was an entrepreneur from the time he was 2 to 5.
Yeah.
So that's all he knows really, but he isn't really idolized athletes or anything just yet. But if he came to me and said, "Dad, I want to be in the NBA," I would say, "Okay,
this is what you have to do to get there.
Let's figure it out."
Yeah.
Oh,
You're
now working out 3 times a day.
This is how you believe that it could be possible, and this is how you work to make it possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? No possibility blindness whatsoever. You know what I mean? This is how you do it. Our kids, our oldest, my oldest, Everly, Parker, they're at interesting ages because this is the age where people start to tell them to be realistic. Like my youngest, Cecilia, she's in pre-K.
Yeah.
So she can come in and say, "I want to be an astronaut." Yeah. And it's like, of course you can.
Well, she could say she wants to be a cat, and they would say you are.
Bro. My kids are in Catholic school and they're holding the line, dude. They're holding the line in my kid's school. So she can come in and say, "Hey, look, like I want to be an astronaut," and they're like, "Cool, like let's do it. Like draw yourself in a rocket ship."
Yeah. At
dude,
what age does that stop?
Listen, in pre-K, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, let's imagine that. Cecilia, what would you look like in a rocket ship? Draw yourself in a rocket ship. Dude, all the underpinnings are there.
Yeah.
But then I think around this like 2nd, 3rd grade, right? Around that age where Everly is and where Parker is, it starts to like, people start to tamp them down.
Yeah.
Oh, well, just so you know, only certain people can be astronauts, or, you know, not everybody can be an astronaut. I love that. Yeah. I love that one. Not everybody can be an astronaut. We're just using astronaut. Yeah. Not everybody can be an athlete. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. No shit.
Yeah.
You know why not everybody can be it? It's not because it's not possible.
Yeah.
Right? It's because people don't believe they can do it and they don't work hard enough to be it. Done. That's the reason.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Oh, it gets me so fired up, dude.
That was actually, and another thing that came to mind when you were saying that too is like shoot for the moon, land in the stars. So like maybe, I don't know, we're getting very space oriented, but I've always loved that quote though, because realistically, like say you do want to be in the NBA and you work really hard to get there and it doesn't always work out.
Yep.
You could play in a different league or you're still
or maybe
playing.
you find out that you want to be like a sports therapist,
or
you want a coach, or you find you're out there doing it and working and gaining the experience.
And you're fulfilled in a different way.
Building your purpose, which leads to fulfillment. I got another space. Well, I got another space one for you, right? This is good because like space is far away. It's high, right? So like another reason I think people don't turn their side hustle into their main gig. It's not because they aim too high. They don't aim for Saturn and miss it. They aim for the moon and they land there. They don't aim too high and miss. They aim too low and they hit it.
Are you sure Saturn's past the moon? I don't know. I mean, I just want to come correct if we're...
Bro, you know the solar system?
No, I'm not very...
Dang, keep us honest. There's rings, dude. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you being a fact checker and shit. But actually, I owe money in the bucket, so I'll put it in the bucket because I said
I just triggered. Joey's like, dude, are you fucking...
Yeah, it's good.
Like,
I mean, look, we're talking like high and low. This is kind of like distance and like depending on how you think of quantum, but...
I feel like
okay. Let's go away from space. Let's go with just well, you said sun, moon, and stars, didn't you?
I said shoot for the moon, land in the stars.
Okay. Well, think about the stars though, man. Like,
no, obviously we can't see Saturn or the moon. Yeah. Cut that out, Dane.
Edit it out. But you get where I'm going, right? Like people, they don't fail to achieve their dream or turn their side hustle in their main gig or whatever because they aim too high and they miss it. They aim too low and they end up hitting it because they're believing their head trash and they're believing all the crabs in the bucket
Yeah.
that are trying to pull them back to their head trash.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What other, like, I feel like we got to tell some. Do we want to tell any bloody war stories around sacrifice? I mean, there's too many really to count.
No, it's realistically mainly like to put the
Pin in it.
Yeah, I mean, you got this is. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but to be an entrepreneur, your relationship with money has to change as well. Mm-hmm. Like, how much money did we pour in to our first, however many runs of
Yeah, I mean,
shirts? Like, it was constant. Oh, we need. Remember, like, oh, you need this much, and we're like, okay, like we're just literally.
I mean, we weren't independently wealthy. You know, we were doing
No,
well in our day
it was our
jobs,
life
but-
savings. Our
Yeah.
life savings.
Yeah. I think where you're going with that is like you need to sacrifice your scarcity mindset as well.
Yeah.
Like on that tip, something you should be sacrificing your scarcity mindset and
And
lean
you need to
into
know
abundance.
to do business specifically. You need to know that those dollars going in are all an investment into what your business can become.
Yep.
Like it's interesting that people in a typical, and I see this in my own family and friends, in a typical 9 to 5 type of job, it's like, oh, you get that paycheck that goes to this money, and then it goes to these bills or these expenses, and this is what I have left over to spend on myself. When realistically, you have to not get so tied to every dollar that comes in and be willing to risk. And this is one thing I don't know if we touched on in this podcast, but risk or even willing to go into the negatives at some point, and in order to make something.
You gotta be committed. You gotta be all in.
Yeah, make something.
You're
great
sacrificing there. Like if we stick with this S, right? You're sacrificing what is traditionally referred to as security.
happen. Yeah,
You know what I mean? The paycheck. You're sacrificing it. It's a must. Yeah. That's another thing I think, that if you want something like practical, tactical, that keeps people from completing this journey, it's the inability to sacrifice that security, thinking that they can engineer a way around it, and you can't, because you got to be all in. You know, when Bedros came into Fuel Hunt as our partner, right? What was the first thing he told me? No part-time owners, dude.
Yeah.
Quit your job.
Yeah.
Quit your job. Because I was towing the line.
We were hanging on.
I was hanging on.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know, I had to, talking about financial risk, I had to go from earning a very good income to earning what I earned when I was in my early 20s, my first job out of school. All for the love of our community, for the impact that we wanted to have on society, for the commitment that we made to them and to each other. You know, it's another big sacrifice.
I agree.
This is a nice segue into the fourth S, and let's talk about it, and that's skills. Because investments must be made. You've got to, like you're talking about changing your relationship with money, changing how you look at it. You have to, with the funds that you have, or the time or the energy that you have to start investing in yourself to build skills. Because the strength of your transition from side gig or from side hustle to main gig, the strength of that transition is only going to be as good as your skills. The only way to shorten that is to build more skills. The only way to build more skills is to get out there and do it. So an important thing that we always did, and we still do, is we learn and apply immediately. We don't learn for 4 weeks, a bunch of stuff, and then say, okay, now that I've learned all this stuff, now I'm going to go do it. Like, we're learning on a daily basis, and we're doing on a daily basis. We learn something, we put it in practice. Okay, we just learned this. How can we put this into practice, in the business? Or how can we put this into practice in our content to help our community? because this is a learning that we had from business, like whatever, you know? Skill development is the thing that strengthens and time collapses this transition.
I agree.
And there's a lot of learning out there, and there's not a lot of doing.
No, yeah. In this space too, there's a lot of consumption and analysis paralysis. What do you call them? You call
Yeah,
them,
I mean, it's overconsumption and undercreation.
you have a word for them though.
Some people call it mental masturbation.
Yeah. Like mental masturbation, stuff like that. And
like a success zombie.
yes.
That's like a Frizella nod, I think.
And
Or no, he was success fairy. He might have been success zombie too. I don't know,
but nevertheless, they take a lot of information and consume a lot of information, and it's all great and it's all out there, but how quick you can act, like you said, quickly, how quick you can take that information and apply it to what you're doing, it ultimately is what determines your success.
Yes. Bedros, Craig, two of our good friends, they say it all the time: success loves speed.
I love. Yeah. I saw that. That's actually Craig's email signature is success loves speed.
Oh,
Craig.
is it really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's the truth, because the doers will always win. They will always win. And to your point earlier in the show, they may not be smarter than other people, but the doers will always win. Those that learn and immediately apply. And that's an important part of the journey. You can sit around all day and research your mission statement, your target audience. You can, going all the way back to service, you can sit around all day and say, how do I best serve others? Does this sound right? You need to land on it and go and evolve as you go.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Realistically, like, go make a sale. You know what I mean? If we're relating to business specifically, like, go sell something. Like, get your logo, get your brand, get your product, but then go.
Yep. Some of the coaching calls that I do in Fuel on Rise, this topic comes up all the time, because I say it's the way that we literally went from 2 members of the community to 200,000 members in our community. It's how we went from our first sale to our first $1 million in sales. We moved quickly with attention to detail, speed and detail. You know what I mean? Equals success. So skill development. One other thing I wanted to hit on there is the first time you try something or do something, I know this sounds obvious, but we have to say it. The first time you try something or do something, what's the probability you're going to hit it out of the park?
No, and no matter how good you are when you start, in 3 to 5 years, a year even, you might look back on that old stuff and be disgusted. So no matter how good it is when you start, it's not going to be good enough for what you think your standards will be in the future.
Of course, yeah.
So you might as well just start.
I mean, it's rule of the few, right? We've had rules of the few all throughout these S's in this cycle, service, to get give, all that stuff. But it's a rule of the few, like pledge growth to the grave, like you have to constantly be growing, not just to make the transition from side hustle to main gig, not just to monetize your skills, but to stay there. Not just to get it, but to keep it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Especially nowadays. You'll be run over, if you're not constantly developing your skills. So, question for the few that are making, that are in this process and making this transition, like, what other skills do you need, right? Who has those skills? How can you acquire them, or the knowledge that those skills require, and put it into practice immediately? So that's where are we at now? That's the 4th S, right?
That was the 3rd.
No, we did, it's the 4th. We did story, service, sacrifice, skills, right? And then anything else to add on the skills-based stuff?
No, I will say, though, I know we kind of shit on the... oh, my God.
Yeah, I have 40, so... What we're doing here for those...
You're putting just 20s in?
I mean, look, whatever you
Like,
got
I
in your
mean,
pocket.
if you got it like that, dude.
For
I mean,
those
like,
for those that are listening and
check
not
the bag.
watching on YouTube, what are you doing? You should be watching on YouTube. Number one, I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Number two, we have the F-it bucket here. If you missed our previous episode, every time we curse, we make a donation to the F-it bucket, and those donations go to Consequence of Habit, our partner nonprofit, who, man, are improving society's mental health through mastering habits. So that's what we're doing. Every time we curse and you hear some shuffling in our seats, that's us going for our wallet to put it in the F-it bucket.
So
back to your closing comment on skills.
I will say there is a lot of importance in consuming that content, though. Like, I know we talked about mental masturbation or success zombies. You need to be a student of the game. And that's one thing that we do every day is,
oh my God, every minute of the day.
Read, learn, get mentors who are doing things that we want to do. Like even colleagues networking and people in the space. Just getting better every day so we can improve as business owners, individuals, and entrepreneurs. I think one thing that kills a lot of dreams and businesses is people get complacent, they get comfortable. And we know comfort is a slow death, right? So they get to a place where they get complacent with where they are and everything going right. And then someone comes along and takes over, right? Like beats them out for their customers, their competition. But if you want to, going from side hustle to main gig, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. So there's someone out there that has your customers right now. And you need to improve yourself better as an individual, entrepreneur, a leader. And even at your like even if you might be good at crocheting and that's what that's your endeavor, your mission, then you need to be even better at all of those things.
That's actually a good transition to the last S, which is kind of like a joint S. I will use Standout as the S. It's also like sophistication, right? So, to recap, you've rewritten the head trash. You've rewritten the story and you've taken out the head trash that was preventing you from getting started and using the numerous tools out there that are readily available to get started on your transition from side hustle to main gig. You've taken care of the story, right? Then we talked about service, right? You've sat down and you said, look, personally and professionally, right? Or, from a fulfillment standpoint and a financial standpoint, this is what I have as goals. But most importantly, this is the social contribution that my new main gig is going to provide. This is how I'm going to serve others. You've done that, right? Then basically, you've bled, cried, sweat. You've sacrificed damn near everything you have, your peace, everything, to make the transition, and you continue to sacrifice to grow, right? All along the way, you've built skills, right? The skills required for you not only to complete the transition, but keep it, to make sure that from now to the foreseeable future, you're doing what lights a fire inside of you. You're doing what your heart's telling you should do with your life. With your hands, you're doing that hard work and you're being compensated for it, right? This is a cycle, like I said before. You're going to revisit all of those S's. The last S that I wanted to mention, though, is standing out or sophisticating, right? Let's go with standing out, right? Because handout, right?
Yeah.
Handouts don't make standouts. Let's go with standing out. As you go and you're cycling through this process, you are going to continually, like you were saying, have to improve not just your skills, but how you serve others and how you appear in the marketplace or to the world, right? So you have to stand out. You have to differentiate yourself. The reason that I wanted to include this S in the cycle is because I think that when many people are making their journey from side hustle to main gig, in the beginning, there's a lot of imitation. You see other people that have done it, and you start to learn from them and do. Consciously or unconsciously, you start to do the same things they did.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe you start to lose a little bit of your own magic because you're imitating.
Yeah.
That's natural. And I know it makes everybody feel like an imposter. And I'm not saying go rip people's shit off. What I'm saying is there are plays from other people's playbooks that you're learning from that you will imitate in the beginning. That's part of the journey, right? There are certain elements of the journey that are not unique to you. As you move through your journey, though, and you iterate, you start going through this cycle, right? The cycle, story, right? Service, sacrifice, skill. You start to stand out because you start to uniquely make it your own. And that is where the fulfillment starts coming through, because now you're showing up as your authentic self, that thing that's really in your heart. You're finding your way, right? And eventually that imitation, through all that iteration, turns into like the incremental improvement.
Yeah.
And ultimately like innovating in your space.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what it turns into. Like, you know, we didn't have a traditional start as a quote unquote like clothing company or apparel company. We were community first. The clothing came later because everybody asked for it.
And then it was, no offense, but Microsoft Word on the t-shirt. Like we weren't setting out to design hot products, really.
Right. But as we've gone through this, we've developed a path that's uniquely our own. I don't really know of any other clothing companies out there that are so true to their roots.
Yeah.
We're half clothing, half personal development. Like
I would say we're almost a personal development company that sells dope apparel.
Right. We're gear for growth.
Yeah.
That's what we are. We're gear from growth.
Yeah.
We're gear for growth. Like most companies that I look at, and there's nothing wrong with this. Let me just, but
There's
most
different business models.
Yeah, I mean, most clothing companies that I look at out there, they're selling a product to their customers that helps their customers borrow credibility. They wear it because they feel cool. It's not to say that our community doesn't wear Fuel Hunt to feel cool. Sure, that's a part of it. But what we're doing here, right, is we're creating change in our community members' lives, because when they wear Fuel Hunt, they become credible, right? They're pledging to do the work to go from side hustle to main gig or whatever their dream is. They're pledging to do the work. They're not borrowing it.
Yeah, it's almost like
they're becoming it.
When you wear Fuel Hunt, it's not always because of who you are, but it could also be who you want to become.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, exactly. So going back to stand out, that's how I think we stand out, right? Yeah. But the members of the few making this transition, they need to figure out how they're going to stand out as well.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, if you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner and, you know, it's hot right now on social, you know, if you're a practitioner doing these, you know, reels for techniques and moves and stuff like that, maybe that's how you start out. You're just going through your arsenal of all your different moves and you're creating those reels and your account's growing. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, like this is what I love to do. This is what I'm called to do. I'm serving people by showing them these moves and, you know, all this other stuff. As you go further down the road and you're like, okay, I want to transition this into my main gig. I want to monetize my skills. How do I do this? You're going to have to figure out a way to stand out and sophisticate yourself. So maybe you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner that also loves coffee. I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know a jiu-jitsu guy or gal that doesn't love coffee. Okay, so maybe you go from Joe the jiu-jitsu guy, right, to jiu-jitsu and Java.
Yeah, or Joe's Java. He's
Or
selling
Joe's,
coffee.
yeah.
He's a coffee company.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And now there's an introduction. You're starting to
Jiu-jitsu Joe.
you're starting to now you're starting to stand out and come into your own. You move away from that imitation, what's hot, to make the transition to doing what's you. And that's what has the staying power.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So there's on this cycle, there's that sophistication aspect, that standing out that's required. Another thing to complete it. Like, in order to make it your main gig, you got to be different.
Right.
You know? Got to be different. Anything to add on that standout?
No.
S?
No.
I don't know how long we've been going. We've been going for a little while, huh? So we pledged that we were going to make this a two-parter, and I think we succeeded.
Did we?
I think we succeeded. Hour 15. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Again, this episode, direct inspiration from a couple DMs I received. But
One thing to wrap it up, I obviously also got questions as well. And one thing I wanted to save for this podcast is a question I got that I said I would save for this podcast because I didn't want to answer, write the answer, the lengthy answer.
Yep.
But biggest hurdle in starting your business, and the biggest hurdle in the startup phases.
For us?
Yes. So what would your answer be to that?
I answered it. I answered it already, actually. I think on my stories. Well, actually, question was a little different. It was best and worst,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or best and most challenging. And I said the transition to American made.
That was our biggest hurdle in the startup. Would you say?
I mean, I kind of still consider it starting up.
I mean, we are technically. Yeah.
Biggest hurdle starting up? Yeah, it's a tough one. There's like so many. I think one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest challenges, I think, definitely the scamdemic years, COVID years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. That's an external.
Oh, you mean something internal?
Yeah,
well, you answered.
Right, well,
tell me where you're going.
We
with
did
it,
talk
maybe.
about this, right? Like getting other people to believe in your dream or your business.
Oh yeah.
Than you, like you do.
Oh yeah.
And that applies. Like, it's easy for us to say that because we're a global movement, so it's harder to get people to believe in that. But even if you're starting like a plumbing company, for getting people to believe that you can, one, provide the service that they are looking to receive, or two, to believe that you have what it takes to actually make it in business. Because people love to cast you off or think, oh, he'll never actually, look at him with his little plumbing side hustle.
Yeah.
He'll never make it. But I think building that trust from your peers and also your customers is potentially maybe the hardest challenge, or getting your first customers, because I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it goes back to the first S story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, like all the crabs are going to try to drag you back down to your limiting belief. Like the first thing you have to do is rewrite that story. Yeah. And literally everybody has one. Yeah. The depth of the story for everybody is different, but everybody has one. And that's the first step. You have to rewrite that story. You have to take out that head trash. And for me, like the easiest way for me to do it was always to believe in the belief that other people had in me. That's what helped me believe in myself.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So now I see where you were going with it. I thought you were asking about like a tactical business thing.
Yeah, and they were all challenging. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenges continue, and we're here for them all. Type of thing. All right. So again, this episode was inspired by questions that we received. We are going to start answering questions on the show and taking inspiration from the community for topics for show topics from our YouTube comments. So head over to the YouTube channel. If you're there and you're watching this, thank you. Subscribe, leave a comment. What would you like us to address on an upcoming episode of the Fuel Hunt Show? If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. Head over to YouTube though, leave a comment. Let us know what you'd like us to address on an upcoming episode of the show. All right, what else you got? Anything?
No, that's all I got, cuz.
All right, I'm going to leave the few with probably one of the most pertinent reminders. Something that they could, a mantra, if you will, repeat to themselves while they're on this journey, moving from side hustle to main gig. I know we did.
We posted part of it today.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We did. All right. I'll spoil the surprise.
All right.
Always choose hard work over handouts. Always choose effort over entitlement. No one owns you. No one owes you. You're one of the few. Now let's hunt.